Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Skippy. Welcome to another video. Okay, part 2 of the Guillow's S.E.5A build. Just a couple of points to pick up on from part 1. I did mention that the scale dihedral was flat. I was wrong, it actually is as per the plan. Having done a little bit more research, the S.E.5A definitely had dihedral in the wing, so I shall be adding that in. And also I did say that there weren't any videos, or I didn't find any decent vlogs of the S.E.5A build. I was wrong. The day after I posted part 1, I discovered the videos by the Baron Flights, so he's done a couple of good series of both building the Guillow's S.E.5A and the Vintage Model Company. So if you want to see someone else's build, have a check out of his channel too. So just to clarify, yes, you build the wings flat, but the scale dihedral is as per this plan here, so this is what I should be using. Right, so getting on with the wing build. I will build both wings concurrently. I'll build the top wing first and then move down and do the lower wing. All looks pretty straightforward. I am going to do 4 ailerons. I'm going to build the wings with the ailerons, and then obviously I can always choose to not use them. I can mount the servo in the bottom wing. It'll fit, actually I've checked it, it will fit probably on this former here. And then I'll use a push rod to link to the top wing. Depending how that handles, some people have suggested actually just 2 ailerons, so perhaps just leave the 2 at the bottom, in which case I can just glue the top 2 in place. So let's get on with the build. Okay, first things first, let's pop all the parts out for the wings. 3, 2, 1. Okay, they all popped out rather neatly, so now I just need to finish separating the ribs and give all the edges a gentle sanding down just to tidy them all up. Just a quick observation here, when looking at the plan it says join spars here, which to me suggested that you'd build, like on the other kits, the centre section and then the left and the right side of the wing. However, I only have 12 pieces of this wood. As you can see, they're not that long. So what I'm assuming really is, and when I look at this plan here, actually you glue it all in place like that, and then when you add the wing dihedral you cut, like it says here, on the trailing edge, but you also have to cut the spars so that you can then angle it up. Okay, we've got the main spars in now. I've butted them up in the centre, same on the top wing. You can see there, it's offset there. I'll tidy the leading edges up afterwards. What I'm now going to do is take the ribs, I'm going to work from the centre outwards, and I'm going to stop on this rib here on the bottom wing, so just inside the actual full size aileron. The same on the top wing, I'm going to stop with that rib there, and then I'm going to look at cutting out this section, shortening these 3 ribs, and then making the ailerons out of the pieces that I cut off. So I'm going to do that for all the ribs now on both wings, making sure that I use the H ribs on the bottom wing and the F ribs on the top wing. Okay, so to get to this stage, taking me an hour and a half in total. Both wings pretty much built. I've had to take it off the plan because I wanted to see where F6 went and also where H6 went, and I couldn't see that because of the built over the plan. But what I've done whilst I've taken it off is I've trimmed the leading edge, so I need to sand that down and smooth it off. I now know where F6 goes and how it fits on. What I'm going to do for the elevators, I'm just going to build up this section here using some thin spare bolster I've got, put it across, I'll stick that on, then I'll trim down the ribs and fit those on so they fit neatly butting up against that. Then I use the tail pieces from those ribs to build up the aileron itself. I'm also thinking about it, I'll need to build up the edge here so that when I cover it, it's got something to stay on and doesn't just flatten. It probably make more sense when I show you, but basically extend this across, sand it down so that it comes to the edge of the wingtip, and then do that on the aileron piece as well. So when they butt up together, it's a nice neat square joint rather than 2 dips or flats. So yeah, I'm going to now glue the 4 sections on, trim the ribs, and then I'll be able to cut out the ailerons once I've put those on. Right, I've created all four spaces for the ailerons to be made, adjusted the ribs, shortened them and labelled them so that I know which side they go from, or come from should I say, and go to. So what I'm going to do now is remove the wings from the plan and then cut the aileron base out and then form the actual aileron piece. As you can see there, I do need to do a little bit of tidying up and adjustments so it's a little bit more wing shaped. Do that on all of them and then make the ailerons. Okay, for the top and bottom wings and the ailerons, created the extra piece of wood there so that the hinges have got something to fit into. Created the slope to the wingtip so that when the covering goes on it has something to stay square, because obviously I'm now going to cut this piece of the aileron out. I'm then going to create one solid piece that matches here and one piece at the side to then build up the aileron. These will need a bit of trim to then fit in, and I'll do that for all four. As you can see, I've done that already in preparation, and then I'll use the offcuts from the ribs to make the ailerons. So to create the ailerons, cut the original piece off the wing, created a backing plate which will be used for the hinges, took the backs of the ribs from here, shortened them, put them on here, created another rib and then glued it all together. That then slides neatly into the aileron slot, and then as I round all the edges off I'll just refine the sanding down so that it fits much neater, so there's no rubbing on this side here, and obviously I'll bevel the edges on the aileron itself so that it's able to rotate, and I'll do that now for the other three. Here we go, productive 45 minutes constructing the four ailerons for the top wing and the bottom wing. They don't look too bad at all, pretty symmetrical, they fit nice. What I do need to do now with the wing is obviously round off all the edges, sort out the leading edge, the trailing edge, and I also need to bevel the ailerons so that they will have some rotation, and I will need to sand down the edges of the ailerons just to give them a little bit more gap. Using these couple of sanding blocks I've now rounded off all the edges on the leading edge, the trailing edge, the ailerons, made a bit of a bigger gap with the ailerons. So there should be less rubbing, or no rubbing hopefully at all. Just trimmed it all down with the sanding, smoothed it all off. So now what I need to do is split the wings to build in the dihedral. Then I need to add in the extra braces where the wings are split to give it a little bit of extra strength. And I also need to add some additional pieces of wood where the wing struts go, just to strengthen it, but also so that in preparation for doing the rigging wires, need to just work out where to put some additional bits of balsa, which will then receive the wire when I put the airplane together at the end. Right, I've got most of the additional bits of balsa on the wing, so it's now time to split it so that we can put the dihedral. Plan dihedral says 13/16, which is 21mm. Just out of interest, this isn't actually to scale, so it gives you an idea. And then also when I was looking at the plan, it does say here, cut through the trailing edge and then join the spars. Obviously, as I said at the beginning of the video, the length of dowel that I had wasn't long enough to do the individual centre and wings, so I've ended up butting them in the middle, but it looks alright. So I just need to really now just give it, well, cut it where it shows on the plan and then look at putting the dihedral. So there we go, first wing done. And there's one I prepared earlier. On the wedge I've marked where the 21mm 13/16 inch line is. I've just propped the wing on it, and I'll make sure that when I do the other three wings I'll do it to the same space or place. Just seeing how much I need to sand to give a better join on here, just so that there's more surface area, and then what I will do is I'll strengthen them with additional bits of balsa just to make sure they're nice and secure. Okay, it's both wings with the dihedral added, and looks like they're pretty even as well. That's the bottom wing on top of the top wing, so quite happy with that. But just to be sure, what I'm going to do is create a little saddle that goes over the butt joint of the two spars, just to give it a little bit more surface area to secure, and I'll do the traditional fillet on the leading edge and trailing edge, just to give that extra bit of strength. So I'm going to try and build a little saddle that goes over the two spars for each of the wings, and then fillets at the leading edge and trailing edge. The wings are done, everything's rounded off. I've put in all the extra bracing points where the wings are butt jointed. That should give it some extra strength. So now I need to work out where I'm going to put the servos for the ailerons. But the first thing before you want to start doing things is just to make sure all the electrics work. So I've got it all connected up. It's all working. Rudder, elevator and ailerons both working correctly. Also it means they're all centered up when I put them in position. And what I'm using for this model this time, rather than the Power Pack F, I'm using the Power Pack A, so slightly less power but more than enough for what this model is going to be. Right then, that's the general wing construction completed. In front of you you've got the upper wing forward and then the rear wing behind. I talked in the previous section about building these saddles to strengthen where the spars join the ribs. I've done that on both sides, and as you can see the same on the lower wing, and I've also put the fillets where the trailing edge and leading edge join. With the ailerons I've sanded it down to give more clearance. I've done that on all four, and also I've cut the slots for the mylar strips for the hinges, so they all rotate nice and smoothly. Obviously, because I'm making it for aileron working, what I've done is I've prepared the slot for the joint that will be the push rod from the lower aileron, which will be connected to the servo, and I'm actually using an old servo horn, same on that side. And when you look at the lower wing, you can see that I've got the servo glued directly to the rib. As I've said in previous videos, if it breaks I need to take the whole rib out anyway. I've got the additional wood for the struts, and then hopefully where I can put the rigging wires. On here added another piece for the control horn for the push rod, and also I've prepared the aileron edges so there's a bit of free movement. And you can see here I've prepared the slot for the old servo horn that will then be the push rod up to the upper aileron on both sides. I've not glued them in yet. If I just turn it over, you can see that I've also made the control horn out of another aileron servo ready for connection. They're not glued in. What I'll do is I'll cover the ailerons first, and then I'll glue those in once they're in place, so I don't have to cut the tissue around them. I've cut a groove or slot into the ribs to run the cable through. I now just have to add in a shorter Y harness, which will then come through into the fuselage and join the two servos together. So that's the wing construction pretty much complete. I'll now just cover them and then glue those control horns from the old servos into place, and we'll be good to go. Right, both upper and lower wing are now covered, top and under surfaces, same with the ailerons. I've trimmed them down with the knife and scissors. I can never get it really neat, so before I shrink it, just to make sure that all the paper is nice and secure on the balsa, I'm just going to go around with neat easy dope and just see where all the overlaps and joints are, just to try and smooth it all down and tidy up the lines. And then once I've done that, then I'll just give all the surfaces their initial shrinking with water, and that'll be the wings complete. I won't use my water and dope airbrush technique on it until I've completed the rest of the model. The wings are almost there. Okay, I've gone around all the edges of the wing, so the leading edge, the trailing edge, the wing tips and the ailerons, and on the joints where the paper overlaps, just to give it a little bit more adhesion using the easy dope. I'm going to have dinner now, and while that dries, Hopefully it'll secure it nice and tight, and then when I come back I'm just going to shrink it using water just to do the initial shrinkage of the paper. Right then, that's the wings completed. So the lower wing, ailerons, it's got the link up to the upper wing aileron, which will join with the push rod there. Underneath I've got the homemade aileron control horn, which will link to the servo, and I'll cut that once I've recoated it properly. Same on the other side, and same on the other side of the upper. So they're all got nice movement, decent movement there, even more than enough. So these will just connect to the lower wing, and obviously the lower wing has got the servos, which will then power the ailerons. So that's the first piece of the model complete. It's only had the initial spray. When I airbrush the spray and dope onto it, it'll tighten it up a lot neater and give it that better seal for painting later. So thanks for watching that. Hope you found it useful, and keep an eye out now for the fuselage build.